Switching the recording on, everybody. Okay, so welcome to everyone. I've got somebody else just joining. Just a reminder again, if you have just joined, please switch your camera and microphone off. We are recording the session so we can share it afterwards. We're going to run this more as a bit of a structured panel conversation. So if you'd like to share a thought or a comment or a question, please use the chat box and we'll come back to the chat box at the end. Now I'm going to hand over to our host for this today, who's Andrew Ward. And Andrew, I've got one slide for you, so I'll put your slide up and then we'll take the slides down. Over to you, Andrew.
Yeah, hi. Well, thanks for all joining today on the Lunch and Learn. Firstly, we're going to cover 3 key elements today. So firstly, quite simply, what actually is inclusive recruitment, followed by how can we do this, how can we engage our teams, and how we can get buy-in, and then followed by how can we become more attractive as an employer to attract a more inclusive talent pool. But before we do that, we'll just do some really quick introductions.
So just a second, make sure everyone's got microphones off. That's great. Thanks, Andrew. Go on.
Yeah, perfect. So just very quick introductions. So starting with myself. So I work in recruitment. So I work for the Page Group. So I started working in Michael Page, which was mid-management, and since 2015, I've been working for Page Executive, which is the executive search division of the Page Group. So we're a large global company, and I recruit quite heavily within the building product sector. So I recruit director and board level roles in the building product sector. Over to you. I can see you, Adam. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Andrew. Hello, everyone. Really good to be here. So my name's Adam. I am the talent acquisition business partner for Knauf Insulation in Northern Europe. So I cover the United Kingdom, Ireland and Scandinavia. I drive all of our recruitment activity from policy creation through to the actual day-to-day recruitment activities. And I've been working in recruitment now for coming up to 15 years. So yeah, quite a lengthy career in it. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Adam. Ashanti?
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. Lovely to meet you. My name's Ashanti. I am a EDI practitioner, and I've been working with corporate organizations and non-profit organizations for the last 10 years, enabling them to embed EDI in a sustainable way. So it's great to be here and hopefully add some value.
Thanks, Ashanti. Anthea, do you need to do an introduction, or does everybody know who you are? Are you a celebrity?
I'll just say a quick hello for those who don't know me. I'm Anthea Maris, and I'm the project director of the Construction Inclusion Coalition. So I don't think I'm a celebrity, and I think there's people who don't know me, but yeah, my role is to coordinate activities like this, and I'll be helping out with the Q&A later on.
Thank you. Thanks. And then Karen.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. It's Karen Hughes. I'm the talent director at Genuit Group, which is a building products manufacturing business based in Leeds, but we have businesses across the UK and internationally. And I've been working with Anthea over the last couple of years, really, in Construction Inclusion Coalition, and working through how do we make the sector more inclusive and attractive. And Genuit's been on a pretty similar journey, really. So for the last 3 years, we've been establishing really new policies and processes around everything to do with people, so that includes a lot to do with D&I, but also specifically for this called the recruitment activity and approach. So hopefully can sort of share some things that have gone well, and also some things that perhaps haven't, because that's life, right?
Excellent. So firstly, I suppose the big $1 million question is what actually is inclusive recruitment? And I mean, Ashanti will kindly follow with her expertise and her top line expertise from a process perspective and anything that I've missed. But I think it's important to emphasize that inclusive recruitment goes beyond simply trying to recruit diverse individuals, but to create a consistent recruitment process that's both unbiased and also fair for all groups of people. So from what I've seen working within recruitment, but probably more importantly, what I've seen as actually a recruiter over the last 20 years, especially over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, clients tend to come to us and say, well, look, the goal for us is we want to just to hire, for example, more women. And for that matter, we require a 50-50 male to female shortlist. But to appeal to all groups of people, it's not simply, trying to get a 50-50 ratio on a shortlist. It's looking at how you can become an inclusive employer of choice. And there needs to be a focus on how we remove our own biases, and the interview should be kept to kind of demonstrate people's ability to do the job based on the key responsibilities of the role. So you're taking out your own individual biases, and I think that's really important to create an environment for companies to be more attractive in the external market. I think we also need to be mindful that to appeal to all really means everybody. It's appealing to all people. So that can be gender, it can be what we can actually physically see. So it can be gender, it can sometimes be race, it can sometimes be disability, it can sometimes be age, but a lot of the time it's things that you can't see as well. So it might be from a sexual orientation perspective, or it might be gender identity, or it might be socio-economic background, or it could be need requirements from a neurodiversity perspective, like being autistic. Like we've recently had an autistic candidate that really struggles with basically natural light. So it's again educating the client that they need to accommodate that within the actual interview room where they're interviewing the candidate. Or it could be to the point of somebody has children, or they're a carer and they require flexible working. And as an employer, it's actually being flexible on interview times to reflect that situation. Or it might be somebody that suffers from anxiety and simply needs time to prepare for the interview, and needs time to actually have some pre-prepared questions. So I think the key element on inclusive recruitment, a lot of the time it can't be seen. It's trying to appeal to all and everybody. And Adam and Karen will touch on some really good, like, real life examples from Knauf and from Genuit. But the candidate experience piece, in my view, is so critical, and that comes from, if you're recruiting a role directly, or if you're recruiting a role through a recruitment company, it's that initial both attraction piece, and it's that initial contact with the candidate, and then it's managing that candidate right through the interview process, right through the induction process, and then right through their career development process as well, as they arrive and enter into the business. And to do that, I think quite simply, it's asking the question. It's asking the question at that very, very initial part of the recruitment role and recruitment process of, is there any support that's required at the start of the recruitment process to basically to offer that full inclusion in terms of the actual interview process itself. And I think then, both as a recruiter and also as a business, it's trying to celebrate the quick wins, but in time you'll then really start to see the positive results. Ashanti, I'm sure I've missed a few key points there, but is there anything you'd like to kind of add from a process perspective?
I think from a process perspective, it's just important to recognize that these things take time. When it comes to recruitment of all things, particularly if one of the objectives is, ending up with or creating a diverse workforce. And again, the definition of that, is much broader than people are led to believe. Is just follow the process consistently. Sometimes you don't see immediate results, but that in itself doesn't mean the process isn't working, and it doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. It's really important to realize that the process itself is as important as the results. And just because you are following your process, and maybe, for example, maybe you are attracting candidates and have offered roles to candidates that seem to be typical and not necessarily diverse, and specifically maybe you are hiring white males, that doesn't mean that you're not running an inclusive recruitment process. And I think this is really important for people to understand, that that is also inclusion. Okay, the real issue is, do you have a more diverse candidate pool over time? Are you ending up with a more diverse workforce over time? And so that's really important from a process. It's following the process that is really useful, having the process really useful, and the results will take care of themselves with time.
Brilliant. No, good point, Ashanti. Just moving on to how can we do this, and how can we engage our teams, and how can we kind of gain buy-in from the teams? Adam, I know this is something that you're like really passionate about, and you've got some great examples from Knauf, and I'm sure Karen has as well from Genuit. Do you guys want to kind of talk through some of your experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. Karen, do you want me to take first? Thank you. Absolutely, yeah. So we've gone through some practical changes that we've put in place. Something that Ashanti's just said then that we emphasise to, and I'll come on to this properly in a second, with all of our hiring managers, is that this isn't a fast fix. This isn't a quick thing. This is a trust the process kind of thing. So a couple of things one of the amazing kind of advantages we have as a business is that we're a global business. So we have people from, we have a great internal mobility policy. So what that means is we have people from different backgrounds, different diversities, different points of view, different everything, who are kind of, we can lean on to ask them their opinion, to ask them their thoughts on things, if we can get some real good insight. One of the big things we had to look at though is buy-in and internal buy-in. And there's a couple of things we've done to kind of to look at that. So as a business, we have hiring managers, department managers, senior managers who've been with the business for 15, 20, 25 years, because we really develop them and like to hold on to our people. But what comes with that, especially with hiring managers, is that kind of, well, I've done it this way for 15, 20 years. This is how I've recruited people. This is what, and it's always worked well for me. So why should I have to change it, kind of thing. We also have other hiring managers who are keen to make sure that we're being diverse and equitable, but they're a bit nervous and a bit worried about it, and there's a bit of nervousness around that. So one of the key things we did initially, and we've done this within the last 12 months, is actually the creation of my position. So when I first joined the business, I was talent acquisition coordinator, and it was basically to my job was to help with the day-to-day recruitment. So we needed a job filling. I go and find a person, the job gets filled. Very traditional kind of things. But because we have such a passion and a drive for building our diversity, one of the kind of things we recognise is that we need someone out making regular contact with the business, with departments. So my role was kind of created so that I could be a regular point of contact with hiring managers, with departments. So I go and sit in departmental meetings, I go and sit in union meetings, I go and sit in anything where senior leadership may be involved, and they may have questions, they may want to know why we're doing things. So I'm the real face of the recruitment now, so I can be going out and telling people why we're doing things and why we want to have a wider and more diverse talent pool to choose from. And it's worked really well, because people now feel like, okay, we're doing something about it. There's someone I can go and talk to about it. And I can give them key updates on things that we're doing and why we're doing them. We've recently gone through a huge project surrounding our EVP, our employee value proposition, all about opportunity. And I've been able to go out and tell the business why we've done that and why it's so key for us. So it's been a real plus for us. And then practically, one of the things we've undertaken within the last 12 months is we've developed recruitment framework training, we call it. So we want to make sure that all the recruitment practices we do are fair and are inclusive, and is a fair crack of the whip for everyone. So if we're getting a diverse talent pool who are applying for positions with us, what we want to ensure is that when they come to the interview, when they are part of the process, it's the same for everyone. So we've now got a framework, which I'm happy to share examples of, a framework policy that every hiring manager now abides to. we go out, we deliver regular training on it, we do updates on it. We have, so in the UK, we've got 3 manufacturing factories. I regularly visit each of the factories to go through training with the hiring managers, with the shift team leaders, with the department managers, whoever it may be. And throughout it, the theme of it is fairness and how we make sure we are fair to every applicant. So there's no unconscious bias, so there's no kind of anything that people may be worried about they can ask and they can't ask, and these kind of things. And it's had a real positive influence. They are buying into it. I think that it helps that we as a business, I feel passionate about it. So when I speak to people, I can really convey that kind of message. And it's something that we've seen real good uptake. And, you know, even the managers who've been with us for 20, 25 years, they're seeing why we're doing it, they're buying into it, they can see why we're putting these processes in place. So it's something that we still need to get better. There's still more for us to do. We need to think there's a lot more. We're just scratching the surface of the things that we can do. But by making these practical changes now, people are starting to see and starting to buy into it.
No, really good, because you've got that really good example as well in South Wales where you're recruiting a plant director role and just being a lot more open-minded and just having that conversation with someone that didn't tick all of the boxes in terms of agree.
So one of the big things we did with the VP, so when we advertise our jobs now, again, I can share examples of this. When we advertise a job, instead of just having your typical, we all know what it can be like, you know, job spec, we craft the adverts now. We focus them on the kind of people we want for the position in terms of, you know, if they're IT people or customer services or whatever, we think about personas. But what we put on the advert now is, these are the ideal things you need to be in this job. But if you don't have them, but you think you can do it, then speak to us. So a great example, and I know I've mentioned it to you before, Andrew, is a person called Hayley, who's now one of our plant controllers. So Hayley had a passion for finance and accountancy, and she saw a job that we were recruiting for, but she recognised she didn't have all the qualifications that she needs to be, that would be traditionally she would need in the job. But she'd done previous qualifications, she had experience of working in a position with transferable skills. So because of how we've written the advert to say, if you have some of these and you have a pattern and you want to learn, speak to us. She spoke to me. We had a great conversation. She came into the interview process. She demonstrated her passion. She got the job. And now she's going through a SEMA qualification with us. She's been with the business now for coming up to 12 months. She's going through a SEMA qualification. She's absolutely smashing the job, which is brilliant. So she's a real working example, and we've got a few of these, a real working example of how we've written our adverts to say, listen, if you don't tick all the boxes in terms of qualification, don't worry about it. Let's have a conversation and see what we can do. And it's something that we've got numerous examples of, and something we've really positive about. Sorry, I feel like I've spoke there for ages. Sorry, Karen, if you want to step in.
That's okay. No, it's letting you finish. You carry on. Is it helpful for me to share some things? Is that
amazing, Karen? Yes, please.
Yeah. So I think really similar in some ways to you, Adam, that, you know, I think it's important when you're looking at any aspect of the employee journey and you're thinking about D&I that it's one thing's not going to fix it, right? It's a multiple efforts that's required, and as Ashanti said, and unfortunately with a lot of these things you can set maybe targets, KPIs and things, but you know it really does take a long time to have an impact. So having that passion and energy that you're describing and brilliantly showcasing there, Adam, I think is definitely one thing that you need to build in a business, and I don't think it can sit with HR, and I don't think it can sit with the senior leadership team. I'm forever talking to our CEO. If anybody sees stuff to do with construction inclusion, we'll see him on there, Joe, and you're really passionate about this stuff, which is great, but you know, I say it can't be us. We've got to spread the knowledge and the word. So really similar in some ways to Canalf. We kind of tackle the whole of the D&I journey with 3 buckets. What one is about building leadership awareness and knowledge. So that's really that piece that you're talking about, Adam, of like, well, people have got to know why we're doing this, and they've got to personally feel accountable for it and take ownership. And also raising those points that you made, Andrew, really well, which is, diversity isn't about what you can physically see. Yeah, that's some of it. But actually, I'm sure everybody on this call may have done the things, but if not, I'll just do a plug for the Construction Coalition and Knowledge Hub, because it's all in there. But, you can do these great exercises with teams that say, look at all the different things that make up diversity. And I kind of challenge anyone actually that they don't tick a box somewhere in there. So actually, it starts to open people's eyes up about when we're thinking about diversity, what do we really mean? So that's a big chunk for us. We've invested in training, we've invested in at all levels mandatory training, so that all new employees understand that what do we mean by it in Genuit, and what's that. And then the second bit, which is the bit that I am probably personally most passionate about, because it's how I've seen organizations fail, if I'm being honest, in this area, and that's it. You've got to hardwire it in, because at some point, and Canalf will kill me for saying this, but Adam will move on and do something else. I will move on and do something else. And you can't be have things centered around people with passion. You've got to hardwire it in. So I've been really made sure where we've been changing things like our systems, our processes, our policies. It's signed in that this is how we do stuff around here. Yeah. So, for example, where we've been updating what most people would think of as values. We've been very clear in there what we mean about diversity and inclusion. We've hardwired into things like our engagement surveys, specific things that we're asking people about, as you said before, Adam, the employee experience. What does it really mean for people? We collect data. Diversity data from people the minute that they're even interested in a role, internally and externally, so we can see things all the way through. So actually we can hold the mirror up and go, well, we might have these policies around diverse, for example, interview panels or shortlists or whatever it is. Well, actually, here's the reality. So now we can talk about what's getting in the way, or let's learn from the areas that are doing a great job, because there's always places that are. And things like we've created joiner and leaver surveys, not fully all up and running yet. But again, let's hear the truth. Let's find out why people with different diverse characteristics leave the business, but also why do they join or why don't they join? That's really important. So I think for me, those two of the third thing, then I'll come on to, but those two things are the things that you've got to have both of them. One on its own won't work. And then the third thing for me is every day. So this is the bit that is like a bit of a superpower in an organization, is, it's the standards that you walk by are the things that you accept. And we probably all on this business work in like construction, manufacturing type orientated businesses. So just like with health and safety, if you walk by something that's going to trip somebody up or what have you, then you're part of, if you like, the overall risk factor around health and safety. So if somebody walks by a senior leader and notices that an interview panel, because they'll find out who's in an interview panel, isn't diverse, or a shortlist isn't diverse, or whatever it may be, and they walk by it and they don't comment, to me, that's as big of a risk. There's, we put out a job description and it's all male orientated language or something like that. So that's something that I'm, really through HR, our D&I working group, I do a lot of work on is I call it the everyday change. It's the everyday moment, because if you don't pick it up and you don't say something, then the moment's lost and we've just accepted it. That takes courage, though. It takes bravery, and it absolutely takes people like Adam. You be people with passion. So I go back to the who do you hire and put in these jobs. My colleagues laugh at me because I go, you've got to hire a few divas. You've got to hire a few people with energy and passion who aren't going to walk by if you're serious about the change.
Completely.
And that's another difficult question to answer.
Yeah, and I suppose that's quite a large part from the buy-in. You need to have stakeholders internally that aren't afraid to maybe stick up and put their hand up or really challenge people that have been in the business for 25 years and being a little bit of a blocker in terms of, well, we've always recruited this way. We're a building products manufacturer. Why wouldn't we just find another person from a building products manufacturer? And quite almost being too narrow-minded rather than being much more open-minded and think about the commercial value that people from different backgrounds and people.
I would say, Andres, and I'm sure everybody on this call though has lots of change management experience. So again, something I notice people fall into a trap with, and Ashanti, be great to hear from you on this. But I think they think with D&I stuff, you've got to behave differently. Well, it's a change management exercise. So an example I would use, and I've done this in the last 3 businesses, go where the energy is. Don't fight the fights, for the person that's never going to change and thinks, this is what we've got to do. That's fine. Let them be happy. Just let them be. Go where the energy is in the business, because I guarantee you there's a good 25% of people, 30% of people who want change and want to support you. And then it's like everything. You light the fires and they catch. And then all of a sudden, the person that's stood there going, they're holding the ground going, I will never recruit anyone if they've not got manufacturing, building product examples or whatever, that they're suddenly left a little bit lonely. And they'll come either knocking or they go happy somewhere else. We're certainly not there, but and that's what I've seen in other organisations.
And I can imagine, Karen, that's why it's celebrating the quick wins as part of the journey. And then, like Adam's case study with the lady, the plant manager that's doing really, really well, where you've kind of not where you haven't. You've been more flexible on the brief to accommodate for the right person rather than just ticking every single box in terms of the key responsibilities. Over a period of time, the success has come through because you've offered the training and support. And then that's really good examples then, I suppose, to give to people that might be a little bit more reserved in terms of their thought processes.
Yeah.
I think the other thing for us is often, and you said this earlier, diverse characteristics are not things that you can physically see. And so people make quite horrendous at times, actually, assumptions. So they actually would assume that they've gone out and bought someone just like them. And it's actually only through that first bucket that I was talking about and sort of leadership training and development to make them have more open conversations that they realise they didn't buy anybody like them at all. So and that's, we're all human beings. We are all different. That's the point. Everybody's DNA is different. And I think that's something that is quite tough actually in recruitment, because people literally go to tick boxes. So a challenge I had recently, for example, we were recruiting some summer interns, and I asked somebody how they'd screen the candidates, and they'd done it on location, because they said, well, we need people that are local, like to the business. And I said, oh, that's fine. I said, but how do you know they haven't got an uncle or an auntie that lives around the corner and they were going to go and stay with them for the summer? So you have literally just put everybody to where they grew up, instead of going, well, actually, we could go and ask them. So you might have missed out some brilliant candidates just because they live in Scotland or something. But how do you know that their granny doesn't live around the corner, or the best friend or something? And I think that it's like they suddenly go, oh, yeah, I never even thought about that. And so it's just getting people to just think of people as human beings, effectively.
I think you made a really valid point on when we were just obviously having a meeting to talk through the webinar, Karen. And it's, if you're having applications that are coming through, talk to people. Don't just have that kind of sudden assumption, oh, well, they've had 4 jobs in the last 5 years. Well, they're not going to be a loyal employee. oh, well, they live in a different location. Oh, someone's applying from South Africa. Well, it might be that they're looking to relocate, or they've got family in the UK. So it is very much just having that call, having that initial call, and then from that point, then include them into the process if they're hitting the criteria.
Andrew, I think someone's got their hand up. Can you see that?
Pamela?
Hi, sorry, man. I jumped off as you guys were busy introducing each other. So my name is Pamela. I'm based in South Africa. I work for a company called Clipboard. We are a global ERP software house. So I'm the sourcing specialist in the department. So yeah, so I just wanted to quickly introduce myself because I did miss out that I had to jump in on an important call. Sorry.
No problem, Pamela. Thank you. Cool. That's nice to meet you. Just jumping on to the last topic, because I know that we've got questions and answer Q&A after. So becoming a more attractive employer. Ashanti, I know you've got some really good examples and thought process in and around this. So do you want to start?
Yeah, so how you can demonstrate that you are hopefully an attractive employer through your recruitment process.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there are just some real kind of basic things that I think companies of all sizes miss out on the opportunity to do, and they don't always require money. This is the brilliant thing. You know, even just the way you are describing your company and the role on a job description, all right? You don't even always have to use the words diversity and inclusion. For some organizations, they do. But, you know, amplifying if you have internal staff networks, if you've got certain kind of maternity, paternity benefits, it's really sending out those signals that more accurately describe the working environment and the options that your employees will be able to have when they work with you. These are just some basic things. What you're including on the careers pages on your website, what you're including in the job descriptions, and yes, how you go about even with those initial responses to job applications. Those things may seem small and subtle, but they really actually do make an impression on candidates at scale, but also maybe you're doing a smaller recruitment drive. It can make a real positive impression that allows them to see what it's really like to be employed in your organization and at your organization. Honestly, those things are some of the basics that sometimes we see organizations miss the opportunity to do. The other thing I will say is that there is a practicality to this. You know, some organizations have limited resources. And so it really is about choosing the one or two things that you and your team can do well and consistently if you want to be a more attractive employer. It's not about boiling the ocean. It's about, let's choose one or two things that we know we can master and get right consistently for the candidates that apply for our roles. And that is enough. Okay, I think sometimes we have to be quite pragmatic about this in terms of you might just have one or two people. Okay, so it might not be feasible to call every single candidate, but what other things can we do in that process that allow people to view us as an attractive employer? And then the other thing is being willing to have conversations. And I think, Adam, that case study that you gave as an example, that can be very attractive. It's about, okay, where actually are our non-negotiables? Where actually are the essential criteria? Where do we sit on that? And then actually what other areas in reality are desirable, but not actually essential? And being willing, I think, as teams to have those conversations internally and then adjust your process accordingly so that you are able, again, to attract the kind of candidates that you are looking for. And then, the last thing I think is just about understanding that life is very complex at the moment. And, what people are looking for changes and shifts as well. And I think, therefore, to be an attractive employer, that doesn't mean that it's a catch-all and you do anything. It is okay as an employer to have some criteria and some standards. You may not be able to meet the needs of every single candidate that's out there looking for a job. And that also is okay, right? Being an attractive employer doesn't mean that you do anything, accept anyone, that's not actually the reality. And I know this can be quite strange coming from an EDI practitioner, but it's not. That's not. It still can be boundaried, and you can still be attractive to the types of candidates that you actually are looking for.
That's great advice, Ashanti. And just on the adverts and the job descriptions, we've got a tool that we use in Page, where you simply just cut and paste the job description or the advert onto this app tool, and then it tells you how it tells you the words that might be more masculine, more feminine, and obviously you can just make sure that it's 50-50 in terms of the wording. So I can share that in the library, Anthea and Karen, that you use on the CIC. But we find that it's just simple, really simple. But you just cut and paste, and it said, right, this advert is more feminine biased, more masculine biased, and that's just one thing where it's just very easy to do every time. From like an advert placement side, I know you had some thoughts on that as well, Ashanti, in terms of where you actually place the adverts. I know, yeah, it might be the same thing to do, just to post the adverts on the diversity job boards, but well, you can talk it through. It's not always the most successful, from what I hear.
No, so diversity job boards are still very niche, okay, in terms of their reach. And what you'll find is that, you know, there are very few diversity job boards, like the companies that sit behind them, that can evidence via causation that people are applying to those roles through that diversity job board. Okay. Now, and I say very few, there are some that have been doing it for a long time, and so they are able actually through various elements to nudge people to actually apply for the jobs through that diversity job board. The research shows that people who we would classify, and again, this is so broad to say a diverse candidate, we're talking about if you're targeting like very specific verticals like ethnicity, disability, maybe even gender. We know that people aren't always searching on those job boards. They are still on LinkedIn, Indeed, and these other more mainstream popular places that you go and look for a job. Okay, so a mother isn't always going to a job board that says jobs for mothers. No. Generally speaking, a professional woman with some experience is looking on professional portals to find a job. Okay, so it's very important that if you do choose to partner with these diversity job boards and networks, you ask very specific questions about the results. So what are you actually doing? You know, how many people come to the job board? How do you track, you know, not just click-throughs, but people actually applying? You have to do some due diligence as an organization, particularly if it's a paid partnership, around why you're doing it and what the results will be. The other element is, look, some organizations work with these diversity job boards and platforms because there's a reputation piece. They do want to be able to put the logo on their website. They want to use it in there, and that's valuable. That is also legitimate and valid, but understand that that's what it's for. This is a reputation play. It's not a direct number of applications increased play. So these are some of the realities, and we have to be pragmatic. If you want to do it for reputation internally, externally, it's also okay. If you're paying for it, understand what you're paying for, because it may not directly lead to an increase in applications from women who have children, or people who are of color, or people who have a particular disability. So again, you're better off amplifying your existing job descriptions and recruitment activity in the places where you tend to already attract candidates. I will say also, when it comes to partnering with, you know, platforms and communities and networks that do have engaged community, and this is key, are their communities engaged? There's a difference between having a database of 10,000 people who've indicated their parents and having engaged communities that engage with their content, engage with their events. That can be very useful for you as a company. If you have a more integrated partnership where you're sharing content, you're turning up to their webinars, you've got people present at their events, that's when you are likely to see an increase in applications from that particular community. So if you're going to go down that partnership route, you're better off in terms of time and money being spent having integrated partnerships, not just sending them a job application that they send out to a mailing list. You're not likely to really see tangible results by doing that.
Really, really good advice. Really good advice. I think Adam, if you're happy to share the adverts, the wording that you have at the bottom of the adverts, I think that would be really useful for people to see, because I'm sure that would get more positive results than the diversity websites just to be posting onto the diversity website.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to share them now, or I can put it into the portal later?
Yeah, should we put it, Anthea, should we add some of this information into the portal so everybody can see?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Brilliant. But just whilst we're on the subject, so another, and just to follow up on what Ashanti was saying, so with the way we've kind of, and I mentioned before, we've still got a lot of work to do. We are far from being the finished article on this, but from the work we've been doing on the adverts, we have been attracting people from a more diverse background. Something we've learned to do, and it's something we've said a few times already, is about celebrating the quick wins, but also leaning on the people in and around you who can help. So we had through the way our adverts were written, we were looking for a maintenance planner for our plant in St Helens, and we had a guy who lived in London, recently emigrated from Nigeria, got a qualification, needed help with visa, but because of the way we've written our adverts, he applied for the job. Thomas, he got the job. He's absolutely brilliant. He's smashing it. But then I was having a conversation with Thomas, because I'm out in the business. We were having a conversation, and he was speaking to me about his networking and around him. And he was saying there's so many talented people who are missing out. And I was like, well, Thomas, help me help me spread the word, kind of thing. And he introduced me to his network of friends who had come to the country, gone through education. And one of his network applied for a job with us, Jude, and he's starting with us in 6 weeks as our. Now, Jude isn't getting the job because he's a friend of Thomas. Jude's getting a job because he entered into the recruitment process and he was the best person for the job.
Yeah.
So, leaning on the people in and around you, your networking around you can help you to spread the word. It's just a real kind of good, as we said, quick win. It was a really great, and just look what's in and around you and be practical about it as well, is what I always think. It's great to have policies and procedures, and, we all need structure, but look for the practical things around. That's why I always think, who's in and around that can help? Who can I speak to? I don't know everything, so what can I go and do? Who's in the business already that can help us spread the word that we're trying to get out? So it's sometimes the answer can be right under your nose, but because you're looking for the big kind of wins, you miss the smaller things. So definitely encourage that kind of working.
Brilliant. I'm conscious of time, guys. Should we jump on to Q&A, unless anyone's got anything else to talk through on the becoming a more attractive employer? And there's only a certain amount of points we can cover in an hour. So, have we had any questions that have come in, Anthea?
Yeah, we've got one question from Tina. So if anyone else has got any questions, please feel free to come off mute and put your camera on and speak up, or put the questions in the chat box. So Tina's question, while we let people decide if they've got any more questions. Andrew mentions interviewing for skills. CVs will give you whether the candidate has these. So how do you help managers remove biases on team or cultural fit? Managers will have different views on this, and we could miss a golden opportunity. So how do we help remove the bias from this, from the CV sifting process? Anyone want to have a shot at just saying what you do for your CV sifting process?
I can start.
Adam, Adam, you go first. Yeah.
Sorry, was that me?
Adam, yeah. Adam,
sorry.
Go first. Sorry.
So something we do and we abide by, and something I'm pretty passionate, I suppose, being a bit old school in the way of it, is that we look and we study every CV that comes in. And so right at the start of our recruitment process, we have a sit down with the hiring managers and we say, right, what is this job? What are the desirables? What are the essentials? What are the kind of things we can develop within this role? And then we use that to go out to market to advertise, but we also use that for our CV sifting. So now I appreciate this can be hard because a lot of jobs you get a lot of applications for, but we look at each CV that comes in and we look at it for its merits according to the position that we're applying for. Now, CVs, we can have an endless conversation about CVs, because a good CV to me might be a terrible CV to someone else, and it's an age-old kind of thing. But we work with hiring managers as well as part of our framework training to tell them the key things you're looking for in a CV, the kind of things. There are some things that drive me mad in a CV when people tell me that they're punctual in a CV, and I think, well, I should think so, because you're meant to be in work on time. You know, those kind of things, great. What are the key things that we're actually looking for? What do we need? And look at each one individually. It can be hard and it can be time consuming, get that, but if you want to make sure you're getting the right person through to the first stage, to that screening call, then that's in my opinion is the best way to do it. And it comes down to that kick-off meeting we have with hiring managers. What are the essentials we need? What are the desirables? What's the development pieces? We look at things just as part of our process. We're looking at blind CVs. We're looking at CVs without addresses on, all these kind of things to make sure that they are more equitable in our decisions. Our software is not quite there at the minute, but we do practical things to make sure. It can be time consuming, but it's worth it. Very, very much worth it.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks. And Karen, did you want to add what you guys do?
Yeah, I just a couple. I won't repeat some of the things that Adam said, but I think one of the things that we've started to introduce where we have a lot more mass recruitment in our early careers is the video element. So accompanying a CV with and we do put a maximum of like 2 minutes on the video, because otherwise it's really hard to sit.
Yeah.
Interestingly, some people don't even do them, which then makes you go, well, then you're not for us, because if you can't be bothered to do it, sort of thing. But yeah, it's and that's really interesting. We do use criteria. So based on we have 3 core behaviors, and we choose criteria and things to look out for in those videos. So it's almost really easy to score somebody like based on that. We've only done that though, I should say, like for our early careers, that's like graduates, placements, interns and things, but we are looking to do it a bit more wider, and in a similar way to you were describing, Adam, up front again from I've got a bit of a thing really about culture fit, because I'm a bit like, maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want people who don't fit, back to my hire the divas, but anyway, is again agreeing with the line manager, and maybe with help from their HR support of, so what's going to make this person successful in this role, what sort of behaviors, and looking at who's perhaps been in the role before, whether it's good, bad and indifferent and that kind of thing, so that you can build up when you're doing those initial screening calls and things with people, you can kind of do these tick all the boxes, or actually this person's a bit different, and it may be useful for you to meet them, you know. I have a particular thing about introverts and extroverts, which I really struggle, because I think through recruitment it can be one of the biggest biases ever, just because somebody's really happy to chat away, like clearly we all are on this call, doesn't mean that person's any better than the person that's obviously an introvert and quieter. So it's about then back to the hiring manager's skills and how do they sort of ask the right questions to elicit the right information. And as we all know, that is a real skill.
Thanks, Karen. Shanti, do you have anything you wanted to add on CV screening?
Yeah, I would say, look, there's a couple of things that might be useful. One, to Karen's point about this, perception of introversion and that is a big one. And actually, that's why it's really important that you are very clear on the skills that you are seeking, and that you do have some kind of moderation or matrix that, regardless of the manager's personal opinion, they do have to be able to justify or defend that decision according to that matrix. It can't just be, well, I got a funny energy, or I really like the person. And I think that's really key. And also, this is an area where cultural competency matters, because there are some cultures that are more reserved in their expressions, their body language, their facial, and so that is a real cultural thing. And that means, and we have to also recognize that work is work to some people. It's not their whole life. And so some people do turn up with what they believe is a professional demeanor at work. So they might be fun and jovial at home. But for them, when they're at work, this is work. And so they don't necessarily bring that energy into the workplace. But that doesn't mean that they're disengaged, they don't care, and they're not a kind of amenable person to work alongside. And this is where culture does matter and make a difference. So I think that was a great point, Karen, that often it sometimes requires experience and maturity on the part of managers to discern.
Yeah.
Hence why you don't want to leave your interview process down to, you know, how people feel. Have a matrix that is used actively and you expect them to use it. The last thing I will say around CV filtering is that obviously with the fast and rapid adoption of AI, there are lots of tools being sold into the market that say that they help you filter CVs. It's really important if you're going to introduce that kind of technology that, again, you're asking the right questions in the procurement process about how the tool is used. What are the parameters? What are the guardrails? So that it doesn't end up actually introducing more bias or, you know, affirming certain biases when you're using a tool that you think that's going to help us sift 400 CVs in a couple of minutes. Well, you need to understand how the system works. What are the guardrails? What are the variables it's actually using? Because it might help you save time, but it might not actually help an inclusive recruitment process. So I think AI now is a big factor in CV filtering.
Thanks for that. Brilliant.
I think it's asking that question at the start of the process as well. It's just because you don't think something needs to be said, you think that it should be said. Like if you say smart casual, well, what does smart casual actually mean? Smart casual for one person is very different to somebody else, and if they're coming in with not what you expected, then that's you because you haven't asked the question. You can't expect people to interpret what you actually what you're saying if you're not actually explaining it. Well, we had a and again, I think a lot of it depends on the role as well. We had an very technical IT role, and the candidate really struggled with harsh lighting. So again, it was looking at the making sure that the room and the environment was correct. But he also struggled to wear a suit. He felt very uncomfortable in a suit. So obviously we then spoke to the client and said, look, he's going to be attending in a polo shirt. And it was a very technical IT role. And he just said, I just don't like him. I just can't perform in interviews. So they asked him to design an intranet, like an intranet. I'm not an IT recruiter myself, but like some kind of intranet thing. And it was absolutely brilliant. And, so it is, again, it's kind of really understanding what the actual fundamentals of the job are and what the job requirement is, rather than also always just kind of assuming.
Brilliant. So we haven't got any more questions in the chat. So does anyone want to ask a final question? We've got a couple of minutes left. Otherwise we could, so what question from Rebecca? What tips or what sort of data has been most beneficial in persuading senior leaders that some of the behaviours they feel is acceptable because of something they've done for years is actually exclusive or alienating if we want to be a DEI forward organisations? What are tips in getting managers to question that some of the stuff they've done for ages is actually exclusive? Anyone got any tips for persuading people? I can go on, Karen.
If you like, because we've done lots of this, and so the biggest tip I would have is hold some confidential focus groups, however you want to describe them, coffee chats, and get some real examples from people, because that was I would say it was like a lock and key moment for me at Genuit, where it's like, obviously there's nothing terrible happening, of course there's not, and it's like, well, I go back to, well, what depends what you think is terrible. And then you kind of highlight a few things. So, in some of the original focus groups I did, somebody would say, oh, yeah, well, I'm the only female, and so I'm just expected to make the tea. And it was like, and we obviously wrote it down, put it on a PowerPoint, all that kind of thing, and put it up in an exec meeting, and they're embarrassed, absolutely embarrassed, and as they should be, and as I was, and it's like, do we want to work in an organisation where this happens? And it's like, well, no, of course we don't. And it's like, okay, well then here's what it's genuinely going to take, because that's ingrained behavior. That's culture, that's everyday stuff. And then again, back to the, you know, data thing, as I said, once we started collecting, I kind of didn't say too much about numbers of people of different backgrounds in our business until I had data. And then once I had the full year's worth of data, what was brilliant was I could bust the myths. So I could bust the myths that women don't apply, or somebody who isn't white apply, or we don't have any bisexuals in our business. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I'm not going to tell you who they are, but this is, you know, and so it's kind of like, oh wow, oh right, okay. And so even your most cynical kind of, but we work in construction, but can't argue with kind of hard facts. And I have to say, some of those individuals that were probably the most resolute are the people that are now the most passionate. But yeah, that's a couple of examples.
Brilliant. Thanks, everybody. I'm really conscious of time, and I just wanted to mention, I made a note of some of the stuff that we talked about, which we'll get copies of and put in our member resources library. So the advert wording checking tool, the CNALF advert wording about, you know, apply even if you don't meet all the requirements. CNALF, you mentioned a policy on recruitment. I think we might have it there already, but I'll check, and if not, I'll let you know, Adam. And anything you've got on training for managers, anything like that, we could stick in our resources library. So I don't see any final questions. So I think what remains me to say is just say thank you to our panel for being here today and sharing your knowledge and experience. I say this has been recorded, so we will put this in our member resources library as well. I just want to say thank you to everybody, and hopefully everyone's taken a few little hints and tips away to make their processes more recruitment. And thanks for all the apps that we're getting as well. So everyone, have a great day, everyone, and have a enjoy the sunshine. I see.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.